12. Trisha. The envelope was as bulky as if it was full of people's medical forms, thought Dan as he picked up the phone again. He got through to the duty manager, who told him with a yawn that stamps could only be obtained between 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Dan retorted that he had an urgent letter which he wanted to get to Blantyre as soon as possible. The manager suggested that in that case he should leave the letter with the man at the reception desk, who would see to it that the letter was given to the club's driver, who was going to Blantyre early in the morning. In fact, there was always transport to Blantyre every morning. All right. Thanks. Relieved, Dan said thank you and quickly went out of his room to the receptionist, who was busy reading a David Malupesetter. When Dan entered the room, which looked like a hospital waiting room with those UNICEF and WHO posters, the receptionist looked up, startled. Then his eyes returned to the book guiltily, as if he was reading banned literature. "Will you please ask your driver to take this envelope to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital?" "Driver?" the man asked blankly. "I hear your driver is off to Blantyre tomorrow." "That's what the manager told me." At the mention of the word manager, the receptionist became extremely cooperative. "I'll do just that, sir," he said, jumping to his feet like a private at the sight of a major. "Please. I'll give it to him, sir." "Thank you," sighed Dan. He was about to go out when his eye caught sight of a familiar kind of paper he had not seen since his London college days, The Sun. "Is that yours?" he asked with interest, half hoping page 3 would still be there, or was it page 5? "Some tourist left it weeks ago, sir." "You want to have a look, sir?" "Yeah. You can bring it back later, sir." "Thank you," muttered Dan, strutting away with the newspaper like a customer who realizes he's been undercharged and so he has to be off before the shopkeeper realizes the error. He was somewhat amused, for he had never thought he would see the sun again, not in this part of the world. In London, you could always find the paper left behind on train seats by respectable citizens who had bought it along with a copy of the Times. Such respectable citizens would place the Sun inside the Times and, after staring at the beautiful, sensual girl in a bikini on page 3 for 3 minutes, or more, depending on the beholder's pulse, they would throw the Sun down and change seats. When they reached their destination, they would pick up their Times, fold it into their coat pocket, and walk away majestically, whistling a country tune. Dan noticed with naked shock that the reception on the con was still going on even at that early hour of the morning. The handful of drunkards, who included a workshop organizer, were bragging about their sex life in the various countries they had been to. For a moment, he felt like joining the drunken group, but the urge wasn't strong enough. He didn't want to drink, otherwise he wouldn't wake up until late in the afternoon. And he had a lot of thinking to do. Who knows, he thought, I may find myself in for a divorce when I return to Blantyre. And that thought alone was mind-shattering. How would he live without Julia? He went into his room, picked up the phone, and dialed his house again. There was no reply. He tried Sibongiles. No reply, either. Frustrated, he threw the receiver down away from its cradle. Hell. Then he turned to the Sun. He was browsing through the London paper when his eye spotted something which made him shudder involuntarily. The headline screamed at him, "Fire at Party Flat." The 39th Fire Brigade battled all night with the fire which turned a birthday party into a death day horror scene. A group of youths of West Indian origin were partying at a flat in Wembley when the place went ablaze. According to an eyewitness, Joe Berg, 80, who lives just across Norton Road, I was suddenly reminded of the World War when death could strike when you least expected it. The whole place was a huge ball of fire. From somewhere you could hear the terrible cries of horror, pain. It was terrible. Those who were burned to death include 7 girls and 1 final-year PhD student at London School of Economics, Ollie Hashishmasa. The girls' names are Rita Simmons, 15, Jacqueline Simmons, 17, Mercy Walker, 14, Tanita Kingston, 20, and Trisha Reid, 23. Arson. Slowly the paper slipped from Dan's fingers as if he was dead asleep and landed on the floor. A lot of things were falling in place now. No wonder, he thought, throwing himself on the bed, that Tom was bringing Mlo all the way from the UK. No wonder Tom had been vague about Trisha's whereabouts. Just like Tom. He didn't want me to know Trisha had met with a horrible, cruel death. Maybe he thought I was still in love with her. Well, Trisha may have been cruel to me, she may have done me a very bad turn, but that didn't mean she deserved such a cruel, violent death. To die trapped in a burning building is to die 1,000 times, for you look at death in the eye. Trisha had once been his closest friend in London. She had never known true love, never experienced the joy of childhood, the fun of being a child. Maybe she had turned to him hoping she'd get back the love she had missed. Come to think of it, Trisha, perhaps what you wanted were afternoons out to the theatre, nights out at the Odeon, but I was too busy preparing for my labs and lectures. Of course, we used to go out, Trisha, but perhaps that wasn't good enough. Perhaps that's why you sought another source of fun, Jack Bedford. I will live with your memory, forever, Trisha, but I don't think my heart can give you room together with my wife Julie. My heart is for Julie alone. I love her. You used to mean a lot to me, Trisha, but you didn't mean what Julie means to me now. This is love. As I said, I will live with your memory, Trisha. You were a nice Jamaican who looked at the world not merely in terms of black and white but in terms of virtue in individuals. You were special in your own way, Trisha. I suspect it was bad company that led you to go for drugs. When I came on the scene, it was too late. There was nothing I could do, for you were deep into the habit. I will live with your memory. There's no way out for me now that Tom Nyrenda is bringing home your son, Mlo. Our son. Maybe it's God's wish that Mlo should come here, for if you hadn't thought of placing him in the hands of Tom, he would have been treated as an orphan. And you know what it means to be in an orphanage out there in pitiless London. Oh, Trisha, I'm beginning to wonder now whether Tom really knows you are no longer in this world. He really reads the papers, that bloke, and if he does, he reads the back page, sports. That's all. How could he have known about the fire at the flat you went to? Dan shook his head in dismay, cursing himself that he was letting his imagination get the better of him. Why should he conclude that Trisha was dead? How many people answered to the name Reed in London? Thousands. And the chances were that such people were also called Trisha. That was a big possibility. Haven't we heard of thousands of John Smiths, George Fires? It's a different Trisha. It can't be that beautiful West Indian girl who was the Lord's own masterpiece, that is, the Lord as an artist. Trisha is well and alive. I've had a tough day, thought Dan, suddenly feeling sleepy. He wished he was in the comfort of his bed at home with Julia caressing his back with her soft fingers. At the back of his mind, he had the feeling that perhaps he would never share the same bed with Julia again. Oh Lord! Divorce would be a shattering blow to him, sending him crashing to the canvas of lovelessness.